Beavers. There are few things in this world that I love more than beavers. And what is there not to love? It's the national animal of Canada. It's even chosen as a symbol for our 5-cent coin in our national parks. And various other institutions use one to represent themselves. It's the world's second largest rodent after the capybara, to even weird stuff, like the Catholic Church decreeing them fish and thus consumable during Lent. There's a rich history behind why the beaver is crucial to so many aspects of where we are today. In today's video, I'm going to highlight some key history and go over what makes the beaver so special and unique. And in my plea to the world, I feel like it's necessary to point out how we can collectively benefit from ensuring our buddy has a place at the table. Why? Why care about beavers? I'll tell you in just a bit. Firstly, I'd like to briefly go over something called the fur trade. The fur trade, in this context, was a commercial enterprise across what is now known as North America. It was at its peak for nearly 250 years, from the early 17th to the mid-19th centuries. It was sustained primarily by the trapping of beavers to satisfy the insatiable European demand for felt hats. Yes, you heard me, felt hats. The fashion is truly generational and comes in waves. When are these making a comeback? I digress. The intensely competitive trade opened up the continent to European exploration and settlement, and eventually wars. Wars never seen on such scale in North America before. It financed missionary work, established social, economic, and colonial relationships between the European and indigenous peoples, and definitely played a formative role in the creation and development of Canada. And at its peak, the industrial scale of this fur trade was sending somewhere around 150,000 beaver pelts per year back to Europe. I feel like it's now more relevant than ever to state the economic benefits of free labor. Yes, that sounds horrible. But what if said labor was done by beavers? That's right, economic majors, you heard me, free. When they made this little guy, they forgot to put the quit in this fella. Believe it or not, the beaver works all night, putting in the overtime, and they do it for free. And in a time where it seems like our planet is literally catching on fire, I know the beaver has a role to play. Now we get to the why. What makes them so unique? I'll tell you. Beavers play such a pivotal role in our ecosystems, it's hard to pinpoint one thing specifically that they do for us. Building dams, slowing down the flow of water, and creating wetlands, thus fighting the drought seasons and replenishing our aquifers, providing habitat for themselves and others. This also provides safe zones from forest fires where wildlife can seek protection, and a place for flora and fauna to get to work after said wildfire. Now look at these photos of wildfires. Notice that patch of green? Untouched by fire? This is a wetland created by beaver dams. You can call these fire-resistant areas. Dams also help mitigate soil erosion and improve water filtration. Commonly referred to as ecosystem engineers, they really do live up to the name. Every dam is expertly engineered and tailor-made to their liking. Once they've secured a spot to build a dam, they move heavy stones, carefully placing them in key areas. Then come logs, branches, sticks. This combined with packed mud creates an effective dam that's watertight. Wow, all those benefits while looking absolutely adorable, fuzzy, warm, and cute. I mean, come on, just look at the guy. Why do they do it? Food, water, and shelter. Essentially every survival situation is boiled down to those three. Shelter, to protect you and others from exposure to the elements. Rain or shine, we all need it in some form or the other. Food, to give us energy throughout the day. Water, to hydrate us, or live in, if you're a goddamn fish or fish adjacent. These three are no different for every animal on this planet. You get lost in the woods, you don't need food right away. Water's a little bit more concerning, but you can make do. Shelter. Shelter is so essential, it makes me sick. Try surviving out here in the Pacific Northwest. It's pretty nice right now. Or heck, even the desert, without viable shelter for a single day or night. But Sean, don't animals have fur and stuff that keeps them warm? Yeah, you're right. There's a little thing called predation. Don't we all need a place to call home after a hard day's work? Therefore, we come to a little thing called habitats and dens. The areas are little cousins like they occupy, typically on a habitual basis. Some animals have a say in their habitat. Some are capable of mass migrations to other habitats. Beavers, I don't know if you've seen them move, but they're not exactly capable outside of water. So beavers go, nah, I'll stay here and do my own thing, bro. They make their own wetlands with channels constantly being created to access more and more food. Every life form bases its genre on the scale, some more than others. Of those three necessities, some are so focused on the food and water that shelter is unnecessary. And in the time we're trying to advocate for wildlife and to conserve our natural areas, I feel like we have to conserve these species by stating the economic value they bring us. Ironic, having to beg to conserve something. This industrial bastard does not give a damn. At least, I don't think they're bastards. Contrary to popular thought, beaver marriage doesn't exist. I know this might come as a shock to some. However, they do mate for life and are monogamous. Importantly, they hear the sound of moving water and say, hold up, wait a minute, nah, not on my watch. They will even stack objects on speakers playing the sound of trickling water, notably without the presence of actual water. Czechia, or formerly known as the Czech Republic, would have spent millions to restore a wetland they drained for a local military base before they had to abandon the project from 2018. In early 2025, when Eurasian beavers moved in, years of bureaucratic obstacles, unresolved land ownership disputes, and financial constraints led to significant delays. You know who doesn't care about all that? The beaver. They came in, pushed all the red tape away, and just started doing what they do best. They dammed that shit up. Also, side note, there's a recurring theme in conservation of militaries doing something horrible to the environment in the name of training. You'll see in future videos. Beaver and dams go hand in hand. Yin and yang, the John to my Hancock. Beavers build dams to ensure that they have the space to live free and independent from various factors. Once they've established an area to live in, they need to secure their food sources for the long winter ahead, and channels to more and more sources of food. Taking their food and impaling them into the bottom of the pond ensures fresh food during the winter months. All this to lower the rate of predation. Now, this doesn't reduce it to zero. There's still plenty of predators that love a little bit of beaver tails. Who doesn't? If you haven't, please go try one. The list of predators goes on. Humans, wolves, coyotes, bears, cougars, lynx, and bobcats. These are the larger predators of beavers. Some others are wolverines, fishers, and various raptors. Typically, the easiest target is the kits, which is what we call the juvenile beaver. However, due to their webbed hind feet, this makes them all an easy target on land. This is where beaver dams and lodges come into play. Beavers build and maintain houses called lodges. There are two main types, the conical lodge and the bank lodge. The most recognized type is the conical-shaped dwelling surrounded by water, as seen here. It is made from sticks, mud, and rocks. One of the primary reasons beavers build dams is to surround their lodge with water for protection from said predators. The second type of lodge is the bank lodge. This is typically excavated into the side of a bank near a large stream, river, or lake, where the water is too deep or fast-moving to build the classic conical lodge. Within each lodge, beavers will hollow a chamber where they sleep, eat, groom each other, and this is where baby kits are born and nursed every spring. Beddings of grasses, reeds, and wood chips are changed regularly. In order to breathe fresh air, beavers do not apply mud to the peak of the lodge, creating a ventilation shaft similar to the ever-popular igloo associated with Canada. Notably, you can even see their hot breath escaping the lodge on a cold day, maybe even some chattering between themselves if it's nice and quiet. Each lodge contains at least 2 water-filled tunnels leading from the chamber to the pond so beavers can enter and exit the lodge underwater without being spotted by predators. The walls of the lodge are very strong due to layers of mud and sticks and are extremely insulated. Even with sub-zero temperatures outside, it will not drop below freezing inside the lodge due to body heat from the family of beavers. Now, how do they cut down these trees? Beavers are well known for their ability to topple large trees using nothing but their specially adapted incisor teeth and powerful lower jaw muscles. Beaver teeth never stop growing, so they do not become too worn despite years of chewing hardwoods. 4 front teeth are self-sharpening due to hard orange enamel that contains high levels of iron that gives it that iconic color on the front of the tooth and on the softer dentin on the back. Therefore, as beavers chew wood, the softer backside of the tooth wears faster, creating a chisel-like cutting surface that has zero problems when it comes to all parts of the tree. This footage of a beaver shows the expertise of their craft, carefully listening as they chip away. Eventually, it falls later when the beaver is far away. Avoiding the danger of a falling tree is important when you're not as mobile. I know one of you might be thinking about their total diet. Surely it's not all plants. Wrong. Beavers are pure vegetarians, subsisting solely on woody and aquatic vegetation. They'll eat fresh leaves, twigs, stems, and bark. Beavers will chew on any species of tree, but preferred species include alder, aspen, birch, cottonwood, maple, poplar, and willow. Aquatic foodstuffs include cattails, water lilies, sedges, and rushes. Cattail and water lily tubers are favorites. Using their nimble front paws, beavers will roll lily pads like cigars to eat them. It's not recorded anywhere that beavers do partake in eating fish, bugs, or other animals. In cold climates each fall, beavers will stockpile their food underwater because they do not hibernate. They live on these caches because once winter starts, the amount of available food reduces. And beavers will remain inside their lodge all winter long, except when they swim to the various food caches. Now, all this talk about their habitats and lifestyle, I'd like to name off some stats about them. They are nocturnal, meaning they rest and sleep during the day and get to work during the night. Unsurprisingly, they are very capable swimmers, with the highest recorded speed being around 10 kilometers per hour in the water. They're perfectly adapted for it. They have membrane-like eyelids that allow them to see underwater, while also being able to shut their nostrils and ear canals to prevent water getting in. I mentioned webbed hind feet earlier. One can also imagine this aids in their swimming prowess. However, their front paws are not webbed and are almost human-like, and they use them overwhelmingly whilst building their dams. It's a common misconception that beavers use their tails for other uses other than swimming and noise-making, such as carrying stuff and building with their tails. This is not the case. All this, and they can also hold their breath for around 15 minutes. They also produce castoreum and castor sacs in their growing area, which is a pungent, oily, brownish substance with a musky odor that they combine with the urine to mark their territory. This is also harvested from beavers for various uses such as perfumes and added to food and drinks as a flavoring agent in some cases. If you happen across a beaver in water, you might hear them slap their tails against the water. This acts as a warning system to their family groups to dangers present in the area. Okay, now we have what makes beavers so unique and cool. Firstly, I'd be remiss not to dive a little bit deeper and include a brief history that we have with beavers. This topic alone could be a whole documentary, so I'll try my best to summarize it briefly. Believe me, this will be relevant later on. Our relationship with beavers can first be traced back to 400,000 years ago with fine cuts and incisions found on beaver skeleton remains in Germany. This tells us that a human used tools to consume this beaver. To some, this isn't that important or crucial. Sorry to the people that actually did this research, but I think it's cool and fun to know. These sort of things give us a glimpse of how long we've interacted with the species to give us an idea of how far back our interactions actually go. Ideally, I would love to find an example of prehistoric depictions of beavers, but sadly I was unable to find any. However, Castoridae, or better known as the giant beaver, who went extinct over 10,000 years ago, is prevalent in oral histories and has depictions in art and totem poles from the 1890s. It's just a fun little fact about how cool oral traditions are. Imagine going extinct thousands of years ago and people still talk about you. Hey, remember that bear-sized beaver? I'm going to talk about that and pass down tales of it in my culture for 500 generations. Now we can start to talk about the role of fishermen with the start of the fur trade in the early 16th century. We're starting to establish connections with local indigenous groups while fishing for cod off the east coast of the Americas. Specifically, we can mention the Gulf of St. Lawrence and the Grand Banks of Newfoundland. Before the long journey back to Europe, these fishermen had to process their fish on land to make them last the long voyage back home. This led to extended interactions with local tribes that would exchange furs and fresh meat in exchange for European goods, such as metal goods and cloth goods not readily available to locals. These fishermen found that these furs were insanely profitable for them to bring back along with the fish. Eventually, with the rise in popularity of the felt hat, that also helped lead to the Eurasian beavers' extinction in Western Europe by the late 1500s. The demand for American beaver pelts exploded. Permanent trading posts were established by the French at the start of the 1600s, shortly followed by the Dutch, who established trading posts along the Hudson River in 1614. This was the start of what would lead to an intense rivalry between European empires and their indigenous allies that they made in the Americas. This led to multiple wars, even one that's known as the Beaver Wars. Eventually, the attention of the empires fully focused onto the colonies, while previously they were more hands-off. Two huge companies and numerous smaller ones emerged from this. The Hudson Bay Company and the Northwest Company are two notable ones. The Hudson Bay Company was given Rupert's Land, an area larger than most countries today. It eventually extended all the way to the Pacific Ocean, despite making 0 treaties with tribes on the West Coast, which to this day, no treaty remains. I can't even imagine a company owning so much land and wealth. It sickens me. Wait. Never mind. Later, these companies would combine in 1821 after the intense rivalry was too much for the British to handle after armed conflict erupted between the two. This is very brief and doesn't contain the fraction of nuance that this subject actually deserves. Basically, I can sum it up as establish contact with tribes, set up fort and ideal real estate, attract people looking to make their fortune, religion, government, companies, and towns surely follows. Rinse and repeat until you reach the Pacific Ocean, searching for more and more pelts. Now, we get to the part where you can start to combine some of these ideas. This history was important to establish that yes, we have devastated the natural balance of things. There were millions of beavers across this huge expanse of land. They were here for a reason. This map shows the extent of beaver trapping. The industrial scale of this fur trade almost made them extinct, reducing their numbers to around 100,000 by the year 1900. Keep in mind that beaver populations were anywhere from 60 million to 400 million individuals before the start of the fur trade, with some estimates saying 100 million to 200 million being the most accurate representation. Today, we roughly have around 15 million beavers in North America, and I say we need more, because there's no way they have fully recovered in some of these heavily trapped areas.
Why, you might say? Look at this map. This map shows forest fire hotspots across Canada. Notice a trend when they're side by side?
Now, we all know correlation does not equal causation. There are many reasons why fires are happening, and I won't be going over all of them today. But it is important to know that they are natural, and some ecosystems actually rely on them to protect them from fires later down the line. Combining beavers with deforestation practices, such as clearing out overgrown understory, doing away with unnatural forestry practices that incentivize short-term profits over long-term healthy forests that are more resistant to wildfires and prevent soil erosion into our watersheds. Looking at you, Mosaic, who just wiped out some old growth on a river right here on Vancouver Island, a practice that is agreed upon to be horrible for our environment. One look at this, and I don't think anyone would agree to this. Instead of trees to provide shelter and cover for wildlife, we get an exposed river that will be subjected to harsh sun and will dry out quicker. thus making the spot more prone to drought conditions and wildfires in the future. Back to the broader topic at hand. I believe it's time for us to look at more natural solutions to modern day problems. Can't enjoy your backyard to the vast amount of bugs harassing you? Set up bird boxes and bat boxes to reduce the numbers. Watch the insectivores of the day and night reward you for looking out for them. In 1948, some veterans in Idaho, in some sort of weird, bizarre, war trauma kind of way, decided to come up with the brilliant idea of paradropping the abundance of beavers captured near civilization into remote areas hard to reach. What the fuck was that? This is like the part of D-Day where paratroopers landed the night before, ever brave into the night, pioneers of a new age. And the armada that comes after is the benefit of beavers and their habitats. This was actually a great success, and even NASA has teamed up with farmers in Idaho to use satellite images to monitor the effects over time, to resounding results. Look, what I'm getting at is that this land has used and supported unfathomable amounts of beavers that are a fraction of what they used to be. I'm not saying we have to paratroop beavers into the vast wilds of the world, but it would be cool and one heck of a job description. But they are necessary and have a part to play if we want to fight climate change and prevent droughts and forest fires from wreaking havoc on us. Modern solutions have resulted in the use of helicopters to more securely ensure an effective transition of introducing beavers into areas of neglect. And overall, this is becoming an increasingly popular, cost-effective solution to restoring wetlands. Really, the goal right now is to raise public awareness that, hey, beavers aren't pests that require their dams to be blown up. Yes, sadly, that is an acceptable solution to problem dams. I can't imagine being a beaver and seeing what must be the equivalent of the Halifax explosion happen to your home. So really, we're out here to challenge people's previous bias against them. This farmer teamed up with researchers from Boise State University and NASA to reintroduce beavers to his land. Not only did this secure his land with drought resistance, he even secured a cheaper way to ensure food and water for his cattle. His river got about 200 dams in about 10 years, and water flow lasted about 40 days longer into the year than before reintroduction. I highly recommend watching this video. Speaking of farms, agriculture introduces herbicides and pesticides into streams. Some of these toxins are found to be metabolized and decomposed by the bacteria in the cellulose-rich bottom of a beaver dam. Now, where does NASA come into play? They monitor areas of introduction or reintroduction via satellite, saving local crews from personally going into these remote areas to monitor and measure them, saving money in the long term. This reminds me of how the largest beaver dam in the world was discovered in 2007 accidentally via satellite imagery. It is 775 meters long, or for you Americans out there, 2,543 feet, and is located in Wood Buffalo National Park in Alberta, Canada. Interestingly, it did not exist prior to 1975 via previous imagery. It was originally two different dams that combined and is theorized to join up with new dams being built nearby and could extend by 50 to 100 meters or 160 to 330 feet in the next decade. I know what I'm looking forward to. Speaking of the future, I want to see one where we coexist with wildlife to find solutions to modern problems. And now we come to the end of the video. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something today. Overall, one of the goals of this channel is to question why nature does stuff in the first place, and how often we'll find multiple answers to that question. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more similar videos like this, where I talk about history, nature, and conservation. Sometimes all three into one digestible video, like this one.